In this study, we build a system that can describe environmental features including open rooms, closed rooms, and intersections. Our system uses local occupancy grid maps obtained from either 2D LiDAR data or performing a SLAM. For instance, this image shows a Husky robot that uses our system to describe the environment as it follows its path. Our approach can be used in various applications. For example, it can be used as a service robot which describes the environment for visually impaired people. Or it can provide language-based feedback to facilitate the human-robot interactions. It can also be used to annotate unknown maps. Various studies focus on RGB images to classify objects, but not many try to classify objects using 2D LiDAR data. Among these studies, CAPI analyzes the 2D LiDAR data using the clustering technique to detect obstacles, steps, and stairs. Godel and Olson use CNN models to classify objects in the environment by taking 2D LiDAR data as the model's input. In a similar domain, Pernabis and Rao propose a probabilistic framework using sum product networks and deep learning to classify robot locations using 2D LiDAR data. In these two research, they classify each 2D LiDAR data to one of their classes, but our system is more robust and it can detect the position of all target classes around the robot. Dataset created using a stage simulator loaded with 8 real occupancy grid maps. Each item in our dataset contains 2D LiDAR data, local map images that are obtained by performing a SLAM, and position of target classes in each local map images. To make our model more robust, we use data augmentation. Each time we fetch data from our dataset, we randomly rotate, translate, or resize both the laser and Gmap local map. Also, for each map, we remove the door panels from the door frame and then create new maps by adding door frame with different orientations. This image illustrated the 4 different orientations of 4 doors for the same area of the map. The input of our networks are local maps generated from SLAM and local map created from 2D LiDAR data. We use 3 models: laser model, which uses only laser local map model, which uses only Gmap local map, combined model, which uses both Gmap and laser local map. Our architecture inspired by ResNet 34 and YOLO 9000. The output of our network are 5 by 5 grid feature maps. Each grid cell detects the object with center on that grid cell and it contains confidence score, XY coordinates, and conditional crash probability for each target class. On top of this network, we use our tracking module to aggregate the predictions and locate the target classes more precisely. The tracking module clusters the nearest target points and calculates the probability and position of classes for each cluster group. It also uses a global coordinate frame from map created by performing a SLAM. And finally, based on position of tracked clusters, we describe the robot environment by predefined sentences like open room on left or corridors on left and right. To evaluate our model, we conduct 3 experiments. In the experiment 1, we use the instances from our dataset without the use of our tracking module. Here you can see the input to our model and the position of the robot in the stage simulator. For each experiment, we report F1 score, which is a standard classification metric. In this experiment, the combined model achieves a relatively higher F1 score. In the second experiment, we combined our tracker with our model, then conducted the experiment first in unknown maps and then the same experiment in known maps. Here you can see the result of the combination of our model and the tracking module. Purple cube annotate start of intersections, blue sphere annotate open doors, and green cylinder annotate closed doors. This image shows the full trajectory of the robot and its predictions in one of the runs in the second experiment. The F1 score of all the three models increased using the explored map, which is because of using Gmapping as a global frame for our tracking module. So when the robot uses an explored map, the shift in the Gmapping frame decreases and we will have a more accurate result. Experiment 3 is conducted in real world using Husky robot. You can see the map and prediction of the robot for these trajectories. Although in the previous experiments, combined model achieved a relatively better performance, in this experiment, laser model achieves the highest F1 score. This is probably due to less accurate map created using real-world sensor that provide models with a noisy occupancy grid maps. To conclude, we explore a capability of describing navigational cues around the robot. This system consists of three parts: a neural network to detect navigational objects around the robot using 2D LiDAR data and occupancy grid maps, a tracking module to improve the detection accuracy of the system by aggregating the neural network detections, a describe module to explain the object around the robot by naming object class and their position. To evaluate our system, we conducted three experiments, two in simulations and one in real world.